Hello, my name's Yandan, and wow, it's been a long time since I did a long-form video. Last time I did one of these, it was in 2021. I didn't even have hands then. I've been meaning to do one of these again for a while, but I finally found a reason to. So, I think most people who are watching this would have had a childhood game of some kind. Knowing my usual content, it's probably Minecraft or Roblox. For me, though, it was a quaint little online MMORPG targeted towards children. You've probably at least heard of games like these. Club Penguin or Animal Jam are good examples. Online games where kids could play minigames, take care of a character, stylize their room, and socialize with other kids. I played a lot of these as a kid. Club Penguin and Animal Jam for one, but also Bin Weevils, Movie Star Planet, and the subject of today's video, my favourite of the bunch, Moshi Monsters. It had all the usual trappings of games like this, as well as the whole collecting moshlings aspect, where you could collect these little critters for a zoo, and there was a lot of them. And there was a bunch of music and merchandise, even a movie. Yes, this game has a movie. The game was extremely popular, and I believe won a few BAFTA awards. Unfortunately, though, like many games of this type, Moshi Monsters was run on Adobe Flash. So, it was discontinued on December 13th, 2019, never to be seen again. Until today. And by today, I mean June 16th, when the original team behind Moshi Monsters launched a Kickstarter to revive the game, which is what motivated me to make this video. At the time of writing the script, the Kickstarter is still active, so, maybe donate if you want. I'm not sponsored, I would just really like to see this game come back, but I'm broke, so this is the best I can do. In 2023, I made concept sketches for a video with this very premise, humanizing the 6 main monsters, and then proceeded to abandon the sketches for 2 years. But with this Kickstarter motivating me, I decided to finally get to making this video with a fresh coat of paint. I'm keeping the movie versions of the characters as well as any extra info I can get on their personalities in mind for these drawings, so without further ado, let's get into it. Oh, and disclaimer, the drawing app that I use has a speed paint function, but it follows my camera movement as I zoom in. Because of this, there might be some quickly moving screens which may appear as flashes. If you're a photosensitive viewer, keep that in mind. Going in the order I drew them, we'll start with Zoma. Zoma is a zombie who's also a rock star, and an alcoholic apparently. Depends on whether you see Wobbleade as alcohol or not. This game has some weird names for things. Remember how I said that I originally conceptualized these in 2023? Some of the original 2023 designs I changed. Some, like Zoma, generally stayed the same. I'll put the original concept sketches on the side of the screen so you can see how they compare. Specifically, I designed these in the summer of 2023. You know what else was popular then? Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Specifically, Hobie Brown. I inspired Zoma's design of Hobie Brown. I translated his spiky hair into wigs and designed his human form with the punk rock aesthetic in mind. I took a while drawing the wigs because I wanted to get them right, so hopefully they look good. The main 6 monsters have specific colouring that makes them all work together in one colour palette, purple to brown. I'll put the colours I mean on screen. This makes them all look cohesive as a group. So I really wanted to stick to the colours of the characters as closely as possible. So while some of these colours aren't realistic per se, I wasn't aiming for realism. I was aiming to create a character whose inspiration was recognisable and keep the cohesion as a group, so colours were the best way to do that. So Zoma's hair is still bright purple and he still wears a lot of blue and teal. I generally made the cast's hair colour their main colour and kept their eye colour the exact same. A big part of Zoma's design is asymmetry. His arms are totally different, he's missing an eye, he has a visible ribcage on one side, so I kept that concept in with his character design here, giving him a fingerless glove on one hand and golden bracelets on the other, directly taken from the original design. Additionally, you're gonna see as I colour, I decided to give him only one eye, even as a human. I translated his stitching both in his clothes, having lots of patches, as well as ripped clothing hastily sewn back together, and giving him little stitch scars. I have no idea how he'd get those, but they look cool, so I don't care. As for the punk rocker element, I gave him a sleeveless black leather jacket and a lot of spikes across his design, a belt with metal buckles, as well as platform boots. Originally, his jacket was going to have metal along the edges as well, but I felt that made him a bit too detailed and removed it. Zoma is the most detailed design out of the monsters, in my opinion, but he's still got to have a similar level of detail as the others, and the characters are supposed to be simple but effective. That little design on his jacket is supposed to be a ribcage, referencing both his zombie nature and his actually exposed ribcage. I reckon he sewed it on himself. I also gave him an electric guitar. I didn't draw props for the others, but I did for him. So yeah, his Zoma. We started off with a banger, I think. He's one of my favourite designs out of this bunch. Moving from the most detailed to the least detailed, let's talk about Furry. The name is apt, he's a very furry guy. Zoma was a character who I hit the nail on the head the first time, character design-wise. Furry was much the opposite. His original design kinda sucks. It's just a guy wearing an apron and an ascot, which is a bit boring and doesn't really resemble Furry all that much. So this time, I completely scrapped that and looked for a new idea. A lot of these characters are based on existing creatures, or at least appear that way. Zoma is a zombie, Lovely is an angel, Diavolo is a devil. This kind of falls apart with Puppet and Katsuma, they're just animals, but Furry resembles a yeti. So I decided to lean into that, a wintry aesthetic. Give him a scarf and a fluffy coat for the occasion. I don't know why I didn't decide to make him wear furry clothes originally, to be honest, it really fits him. It's kind of impractical, like what does he wear during the summer months, but it's fine. I did 2 separate sketches to come up with the concept, but I kinda knew what to do once I settled on that idea. I really like this turnout. It's definitely basic, but Furry is a basic character design, so I think it works. I also gave him long and extremely messy hair. Maybe a beard would have suited him, but we're here now. I also gave him fluffy boots. Lots of fluff. Furry is portrayed as a bit of an airhead. Very happy-go-lucky and cheery and really likes food. Like, his entire personality is food. He's a big foodie. He's such a foodie, he even had a guest segment with Jamie Oliver, of all people. No, I'm not kidding. Why is he there? In my initial concept, you can see I translated this into him being a chef. I still think he's probably some form of chef. He just doesn't wear his apron around everywhere now. The whole chef with a watch and always wearing his apron thing felt a bit too formal for a character who's just a silly guy. Technically, the jacket and scarf doesn't quite emit that vibe either, but I tried to translate that cheery disposition to the pose. He's waving happily at the camera with a big ol' smile. Most of the characters have 2 major colours, except for Furry. He's just brown. So instead I used his eye colour as his secondary colour and made his scarf blue, just to give him a little more going on visually. I also made sure to use a range of different browns, rather than just the saturated terracotta. Also, he has visible human-coloured skin, unlike the other characters, so I could give him a skin tone using that. Here he is! Yeah, there's not as much to talk about with Furry. Like I said, it's a basic character design, but I think it's recognisable and it works. Our first last of the lineup. To compare this to a certain other franchise that had a massive impact on my childhood that has 6 major characters who are all friends and have cohesive character designs, Lovely is the rarity of the group. Apparently I had a bit of a thing for groups of 6 back then. She's a bit sassy and sly, has an eye for fashion, you get the gist. Her character design, as in the original, is somewhere between a cherry and an angel. I do like my original concept for Lovely, but I felt that it wasn't practical. The other 5 are all wearing clothes that you kind of expect someone to wear on a day-to-day basis, whereas Lovely looks like she's attending a formal event. So I went back and switched something so it's fashionable, but still is everyday wear. Office glam, I guess. I kept her dress because I really liked it and felt it fit, but just changed little things like giving it a belt. I also kept the tights and heels, but I converted that feather boa into a cardigan and shortened her gloves significantly. I considered curling her hair to resemble the antenna? Stalk? Stem? The official Twitter calls it a stem. I considered curling her hair to resemble her stem's curl, but I couldn't make it look good, so I just went with a wavy ponytail instead. Because of the fact that she has angel wings, I decided to make the collar, I don't know if that's actually a collar or not, but we'll call it that, of her cardigan resemble wings as well. And the sleeves too. lots of wing motifs. She also has a bit of a star motif going on due to the star at the end of her stem. I gave her a hair clip as well as a necklace with a star. As for her colours, I feel like I did them differently purely because I kept getting distracted. I watch YouTube videos while I draw, which can sometimes backfire because sometimes the videos are too funny and I'm spending most of my time laughing at them instead of drawing. This meant I forgot to add the proper details to her eyes until after I was already done, so had to go back and add that later. Anyway, she has a sort of pinky red colour scheme with a slightly blue-tinged green as her accent colour, which work nicely together. To differentiate her from the other character with red in their design and the other character with pink in their design, I put a little gradient on her dress into a bit of a pinker pink, as well as putting little star patterns on there because it looked a little bland without them. Return of that star motif, I guess. Oh, and I gave her a tiny bit of makeup as a treat. So yeah, here she is. I think I did her justice. I like this design. Diavolo is a little flying volcano demon thing with a hot temper to match his hot insides. Sorry, that line sucked, but I needed a way to introduce this guy somehow. Out of all the characters, Diavolo is the one I struggled on the most. His main personality trait is being quick to anger. Listen, it's a kid's game. These characters weren't really supposed to have complex personalities because they were supposed to be virtual pets. But because of this, I wasn't perfectly sure how to portray Diavolo, to the point where he's the only character I actually remade the concept of back in 2023 rather than just changing his design now. And even then, I wasn't totally satisfied, so I ended up combining both designs. My first go around was the idea of just making him really emo with a trench coat and all that. The hair looks like that because I was trying to emulate his volcanic peaks, but I kinda hated this design, so I looked for another angle, and I ended up settling on mad scientist? Still with a hot temper, but this guy likes his sausages burnt, so he's probably a little crazy, and mad scientists blow stuff up. I was really spitballing. I settled on that. It is a better design, but looking back on it, it didn't really feel like Diavolo, so I ended up merging both ideas, bringing back that trench coat from the first design while keeping the rest of the second. Gave him goggles and tied back hair, as well as mad scientist gloves. To be fair, the original design, of the monster does have gloves, so that makes sense. I don't know why I gave him a choker and a necklace, it just felt right, and it looks cool, so whatever. You may have noticed by now that I made a conscious choice to try and emulate the pose of the reference images for the past 3 drawings. I threw that out the window for Diavolo. If I'm going to make something up and make him a mad scientist, I'm going to go full ham on it. So I put him in that classical mad scientist pose instead. You know the one. As for his colours, Diavolo's pretty interesting on that front, because he's the only character to use either black or white as a major colour in his design. However, I tend to use black and white as accents and focus on 2 other colours. He has a lot of a purpley red, but also has accents of a yellow-orange, so I ended up just using both. The purple red on his accessories and the orange as patterning. You may have noticed that I did quite a lot of colour picking from my reference images, to make sure I had those colours right and that they resembled the character enough. This is going to bite me in the butt later on, so you might want to remember that. I also broke the trend of using their major colour as their hair colour for Diavolo because bright red hair would have looked really weird on him. So instead, I did black hair with red tips. This makes him look the most realistic of the group, until you realise that his eyes are bright red. Finally, that damn trench coat. I had the idea from the start of having it be one of those coats with a different colour on the inside to the outside, where it would have that flamey volcanic design to resemble the top of Diavolo's head? The inside of a volcano? Yeah, that. I really like the way that turned out, especially since I decided to make the end a flamey design as well. However, I couldn't help thinking that the trench coat looked really bland, so I ended up doing little devil wing designs as well as just other random designs on the coat, but you can see I messed with the colour of those designs a lot until I got something that I liked. So, here he is, Diavolo. I like him, as I too am a silly little guy with a hot temper. I don't eat burned food though. I will say he's probably the design out of the 6 that I like the least, but I still like where I was going with this. If anyone has any better ideas as to how to humanize this guy, let me know. Poppet was one of the most popular monsters back in the day, with her having her own spin-off magazine, being the deuteragonist of the movie. She was well liked. It's so funny comparing the gallery on the Moshi Monsters wiki for Poppet and literally any of the other monsters. She was a pink, bear, guinea pig looking thing, who's kind and timid, but the heart of the group and the most sane. She also really liked moshlings. There's probably an argument that each of the 6 main monsters represents a different part of the gameplay of Moshi Monsters, with Poppet being collecting moshlings, Zoma being the music, Furry being the fact you have to feed your monster, Lovely being the ability to customize your monster in your living space, Diavolo is food again, or the minigames, and Katsuma, actually, I think I'm just overthinking this. Let's focus on her design. Poppet was the other character that didn't change much from her original concept. I wanted something a little formal and well put together for Poppet, as she's on the more level-headed side, a little less flashy than Lovely because she's more timid. I ended up leaning into light academia a bit, gave her a sweater vest with a blouse underneath, a bow and stockings, that sort of thing. Obviously, I also kept her little Wellington boots. I feel like those are iconic at this point, so I couldn't get rid of them. I don't think any Wellingtons that I've ever seen have that little fold, edge, that little thing at the top, but I kept it because it looks nice. Also, in a lot of design material, not all, but a lot of it, she's portrayed with this blue bow on her head, so I brought that into this design as well. I tried to make the fringe of her hair look like the little fringe thing she has in her fur. I struggled a bit with the hair, it just didn't look right at first, but eventually I went back to what I did the first time and just adjusted it a bit. Poppet's colours weren't difficult. She's mainly pink, so I had to use lots of pinks with blue accents. I tried to colour pick from the reference image I had, but a lot of the colours were a bit desaturated, so I did brighten some of them up. These characters are from a cheerful little kids game. I wanted to make sure everyone was equally saturated to reflect that. I also made the skirt a brighter pink from the original concept sketch, as I felt the darker pink felt a little bit too far off from Poppet's design. I also used the colour of her nose for the button, because I think that's cute. The diamond pattern has nothing specific to it, I just thought it fit and it looks nice, so whatever. Here she is! She's very cute, I think. Again, not much to say. She's a bit simpler, but I think it works. Finally, we've made it to the last, but certainly not least of the gang, Katsuma, the orange cat rabbit. He was the egotistical, feisty, but heroic main protagonist of the movie and my personal favourite monster. He was my childhood monster and has always been my favourite. In fact, I think that without him, I would have turned out as a very different person today. But that's not relevant right now. We'll talk about that very soon. But let's focus on his design. I decided to make him the stereotypical jock. It fits his personality and I think it's funny. I gave him a Letterman jacket with the emblazoned K for Katsuma, fitting for a guy with a big ego like him. Though, now that I think about it, I believe Letterman jackets and the letters on them actually mean something in the US, but, I'm British and Moshi Monsters is British, so don't worry about it. I also gave him the bandana because Katsuma was always portrayed as a karate/kung fu/martial arts master, and I wanted to bring that into his design. Plus, when I was a kid and drawing him, I'd always draw him with a bandana. Hell, I vaguely remember giving my Katsuma figure a loom band one. So that's also partially why I gave him it. And it also kinda looks like his ears, so there's that, I guess. The gloves and trainers were for a similar reason, to hone back to him being a sporty martial artist. That's also probably where those scars on his face come from. But to be honest, I only drew those to resemble his facial markings. I also moved away from the pose of his reference like I did with Diavolo because they either have him kicking or crossing his arms. I didn't want to cover any part of his design or draw him kicking, so instead he's just flexing his muscles. I followed the concept sketch closely for the design, but for the colours I'd planned to stray a little and... oh boy. Like I said, Katsuma is my favourite, so I really wanted to do him justice, but... I had so much trouble with his colouring because nothing I did looked right. It just didn't feel like it resembled him. He was the only one who took 3 separate drawing sessions and 3 separate recordings to do because I had so much trouble with those colours. It's pretty simple on the surface, oranges and reds with a little bit of blue for his eyes, but my god did I have some trouble. I couldn't decide whether I wanted his trainers and his shirt to be white or black, couldn't decide on the colour of his trousers. I ended up adding that pattern to them, resembling his tail, even though I didn't originally think he needed more patterning. But also, Katsuma's patterning is kind of iconic, so I'm glad I added all the extra detail. You're gonna see me struggle for a long time with those colours, and I still wasn't totally happy with it when I finished the drawing and moved on to shading, but I think, looking back, it looks fine. I think the hair and the jacket are enough to make it clear who this is. Okay, let's talk about how this little orange rabbit enriched my life. So, like I said, Katsuma was my original monster as a child. Mine was default coloured and I shared the account with my cousin. And his, for lack of a better term, general annoying behaviour charmed me, even at like 6 years old. I grew obsessed with him in the way that you hear Tumblr people talk about their blorbo. I'd always point him out whenever I had merchandise. I got the DVD for the movie and would exclusively watch his scenes. I would loop the one musical number he got with Poppet. Yes, this movie was a musical, a lot. I really wanted Katsuma Unleashed as a kid, but I didn't own a DS, so I never got it. All my little scenarios I'd come up with in my head when I was playing with my figure centered around him. I've been an AU lover since day one, what can I say? Even now, my favourite archetype of character is the vaguely self-centered and boisterous ones that have a good heart underneath, the cheery red-coded characters that usually have a blue-coded character following along and holding them back. That was way too many words in 1 minute. I got into character designing and art and story writing because of him. I don't know where I'd be today without it. I might have still become an artist, but I'd certainly have a different trajectory online and probably be a very different person. But I am who I am today because of the stupid orange rabbit. Hell, when I snuck behind my parents' back and got social media for the first time, I used to call myself Kat, short for Katsuma. I called myself Katsuma online for a really long time and centered my entire online personality around him, to the point where I'd refer to him as my persona, even though I didn't create the character. Yeah, that last point is pretty cringy. Forgive me, I was a kid, and I've matured since then. I'd never do something like that now. Why are you looking at me like that? Anyway, for all those reasons mentioned, he's always gonna hold a special place in my heart, so that's why I wanted to do him justice. Alright, enough sappiness, get the final reveal. Like I said, I wasn't totally happy with it at first, but looking back, I think it works well. So yeah, that's everyone. I'll put their designs back on screen. I'm really happy with these, I think they work well together as a group and most of them individually. I hope I did this concept some justice after having it in my head for so long. Hey, maybe you can give it a shot? If you do, tag me. As I was just saying, this game means a lot to me and I really do hope it comes back, but even if it doesn't, I'm glad I can finally get this video out and show it some love. And thank you for watching, especially if you made it this far. I'm glad my incessant rambling about a game that no one's ever heard of didn't deter you. The script was 7 pages, by God. I don't normally make this kind of content, like I said, but if you did enjoy, let me know by leaving a comment perhaps, and maybe a like. I'd say subscribe, but I generally only post for fun, so my upload schedule's a mess, and I mainly just post short animations about whatever I'm into at the moment. So check out my other videos and then make a decision. Who knows, if this video does well enough, maybe I'll make more of these. Right, that's enough from me. Bye!